Welcome back to Eye on South Asia. Sanjeev, we're going to talk about our new favorite insider trading case. We just came out of one with Rajat Gupta and Rajaratnam, and they're now paying back their bills for Goldman Sachs. And
I hope this kind of stories don't become like a habit that every other week, there's insider trading.
However, this one is actually being called the biggest insider trading scheme in history.
They always say that.
But this one is the biggest.
Okay.
Matthew Martoma, former SAC Capital Advisors portfolio manager, has now pleaded not guilty to criminal charges in what U.S. prosecutors are calling the biggest insider trading scheme in history. And the prosecutors are saying he used information from a clinical drug trial with taking tips from physicians who were in charge of monitoring test safeties and using that to help the SAC make about $276 million in profits.
That's right.
And now the government is saying that they have plenty of evidence to back all of this up.
And also he used to advise the hedge fund owner with all these tips.
Right.
Right? In order to make money.
Yes.
And that hedge fund owner is not identified in the indictment.
Yes, and neither is the SAC seeming to be in trouble with this. Like, they don't seem to be caught in this, even though they were making all of these profits. But yeah, the government says that there's plenty of evidence, but Matthew Martoma is now pleading not guilty in this case.
Well, I remember we talked about this case when he got indicted. I think the next day we were recording our show Eye on South Asia, and I specifically remember mentioning the story that another Indian American has been indicted for insider trading. Right.
Yes, we had mentioned this case before. Yes, yeah. It seems to be growing at this point, and we're going to follow this and see what happens in this case. And moving on to the Indian American community. Now, we know that there's an aspiration in the community to, career-wise, to become a doctor. You know, there are a lot of...
Would that be number one, I think?
That would be number one. It's still number one.
For all teenagers, what do you want to be? Doctor, doctor, doctor.
Right. Yeah, so if you're a doctor, then your life is complete somehow. And for many students who didn't make it through the MCAT, or they didn't want to go through the bachelor's degree program. Here you have to complete a full bachelor's degree, then go to med school, then do residency. It's a very long process. There's actually an easier way to do this now. One was typically the Caribbean schools, where people would go to Grenada and St. Kitts and several other Caribbean schools. But now there's an even quicker way, and possibly an easier way to do this.
Without giving exams?
Well, without even going to college.
Without even going to college,
yes.
That's better.
So we're talking about a school which is partnered with AUA, the American University of Antigua, or AUA. And the API president has actually called it one of the finest international medical schools. So that's quite an endorsement there, first of all. But it's an American university partnership here, and about 40% of the students enrolled there are Indian Americans. Now, what they do is they have a relationship with a school in India called Manipal University, and they have a program called 2+2+2.
And where is this Manipal University in India?
It is in the state of Karnataka. Yeah, and they have this program where they allow high school graduates who have just completed their graduation to go to Manipal and start off their pre-med career. They would be able to do a 2-year course there and then be transferred to Antigua University. And then from there, they would be able to come back in the US, Canada, or India, wherever they would fit in, and do a 2-year clinical intensive program. And after that, they would be on their way to practicing as a physician.
So altogether, how many years?
That's 2+2+2. That would be 6 years from high school.
Instead of 8 years.
Instead of 8 years, right.
So
and they would probably have to do residency after that. But this seems to be quite a shortcut to doing the whole bachelor's program and that very traditional way that they were looking at. Now, the Antigua University, they are actually saying this is a very positive way to educate their students.
Sure, they would say that. Of course, they want business.
Of course, they would say that. And now they're putting an angle to it where they're saying that globally educated physicians are very good for the American society because they would understand various different ethnic and cultural backgrounds. And they're essentially being educated in 3 or 4 different countries. You know, we're talking about India to, you know, Antigua, US, Canada. They're being shuttled around. And when we're looking at the United States, where it's reputed to have one of the best universities in the world, I don't know if there seems to be a compromise in educational quality here with the medical education process.
Well, I'm sure something is getting compromised here.
Something is getting compromised.
You know, we don't know for sure whether it's education or even maybe syllabus has been reduced. 2 years is a long time to, you know, to reduce your education from 8 years to 6 years, and that too in a medical college. That is substantial. But anyway, let's see.
Yes. There's a lot of Indian American students in these universities. Like I said, they're 40%, and the rate of student enrollment is actually increasing every year, from anywhere from 7 to 10% each year increasing, and that's quite a lot. So this is definitely a trend that we're seeing with Indian American students. Now, in Chicago, there's a very interesting news that has happened.
Oh, yes.
We are talking about an Indian American man who won the $1 million lottery last year, and shortly after he had won, he was mysteriously found dead. And the police at the time were saying that he had died of natural causes, but now the police are saying that he was murdered.
He was definitely murdered. The person, you know, the main person in the story, his name is Uruj Khan. 46 years old, and a Chicago resident, and he actually a business person, owner of several dry cleaning businesses and rental properties in Little India. That's also Little India is a region in Chicago. And on July 20th, a month after hitting the jackpot with 2 instant game tickets that he bought at 7-Eleven store, and then after he cashed a jackpot, which was, I think, he won $1 million.
$1 million.
So he took some lump sum cash, some 400 million, something like that, 600 million.
Yes, he had taken the payout, and he had come home after returning from work, and he had just gone to bed. And after a period of time, I believe his family had heard him screaming. And they had taken him to a hospital, St. Francis Hospital in Evanston, Illinois, and he was declared dead shortly after that. It was exactly
day after he cashed out. And I know he had gotten somewhere between $400 and $600 million after the taxes.
Right, and now the interesting thing is that why police are calling it a homicide is that tests by the medical examiner's office have found cyanide in Khan's blood. And cyanide isn't some kind of chemical that one contracts in their blood naturally. It's a very artificial poison, and somehow he's consumed or inhaled this, and now you know, the police are talking and the media are talking to his wife, his family, and you know, his wife was in the house with him, and his teenage daughter was also in the house when he died. And
according to this internal police documents, the Chicago Tribune, saying that Khan had dinner at his home an hour after returning from work. So from work he came home, an hour later he had dinner and then went to bed, and at night he was screaming with pain, and next day he was found, he was pronounced dead at St. Francis Hospital in Evanston, Illinois.
Right, and you know, it was a little bit of a strange of a statement, I would say. His wife told the Chicago Tribune that her husband was extraordinary, nice, kind, and lovable man, and also the best husband on the entire planet.
Yeah, but how do you figure this out? This is really a mystery.
The police would essentially investigate the family first, because they were in the home when that happened, and natural causes does not you know, mean somebody is screaming in their sleep before they die. There's something just not right.
And this
there.
just happened recently, I think on January 7th. That's when Chicago Tribune reported this. He had won a lottery in July, but he cashed out as, you know, just recently. And then according to Chicago Tribune report, this happened around January 7th. So it's less than a week, and maybe autopsy report and everything must be coming out now, which will reveal exactly what he ate. It says he ate at home, right?
Right.
So what he ate and how he got poison into his body, and really, really sad.
It's very sad.
Strange story.
It's a very strange story, and we should be having some answers soon, because they have found something very concrete here. And there's another story in relation to this has happened in New Jersey. An Indian American truck driver has now been involved in a hit-and-run accident and death that he had caused on Route 33. And that happened actually 2.5 years ago. Jaswinder Singh is the accused, and now he's pleaded guilty.
Guilty, finally.
And he could face up to 2 to 5 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter. And he had actually killed unintentionally a 21-year-old Paul Miller of Scranton, Pennsylvania.
His name is Jaswinder Singh, about 30 years old, and he lives in Parlin. Well, actually, he lives in Parlin, New Jersey, right? This accident happened on Route 33 in Hamilton Township, New Jersey.
Right.
Like you said, about 2.5 years ago, when this gentleman, Jaswinder Singh, he was driving his truck. He's a truck driver, and according to witnesses, he was driving erratically at high speed when his truck actually jackknifed, crossed the median, and hit Miller's van, killing him instantly. And at the time, there were like 11 people in the van, and no one got hurt.
In the victim's van.
Right, in the victim's van.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
None of the 11 people in the van were hurt, according to Pocono Record News website.
Right.
But Mr. Paul Miller, I think, instantly he died.
Right, because he was actually the driver of the van.
True. And then Jaswinder Singh ran away from the scene, right?
Right, that was the main problem. It was a hit and run, and now Singh is actually requesting the court if he can, you know, somehow enter a probationary program for first-time offenders, because he's not, he doesn't have a criminal record or anything,
right.
But he wants to request that instead of a trial or a guilty plea, but the court denied his request because this is a very serious offense, even if it is first time, because it caused a death.
Yeah.
And after that, Singh had no choice but to plead guilty. Now, in addition to that, he would also possibly have to pay thousands of dollars in fines.
And his family and friends, actually, they could write letters showing their support for Jaswinder Singh's character and a past history, I guess, to reduce the sentence, which could be up to 5 years.
Yeah, they could, you know, give some kind of recommendation for his character and be able to build a case that way. But in the end, the judge decides the severity of the punishment based on this crime.
And I remember, Bhavna, about 2-3 weeks ago, we had covered a story that somebody driving, again in New Jersey, in the Franklin Township area, which is like in the central Jersey, again hit and run. And that driver, actually, this Indian driver, he just ran away. He hit I guess a person who was actually riding a bike, and he hit him, and then, you know, tried to move his car and ran away. And eventually, cops noticed because one of the pieces from the bike had kind of got stuck in the car, and that's what was making noise. So this is another hit and run accident, and unfortunately, you know, he will have to pay price for it.
Right. I mean, whether it's on the highway or on local roads, doesn't matter. There'll be evidence left behind. So it's best not to hit and run. All right. So we're gonna have some fun stories. We're gonna have some entertainment and some fun community stories right after the break.
Thank God.
And we're gonna take a short break. We'll be right back on Eye on South Asia.